One of my absolute favorite things to do is to spend time walking through the aisles of nurseries, garden centers, having a look at all the incredible plants they have and just how beautiful their plants are and how much they look after them. But you know that when it comes to looking after your future fruit trees, there are a few things you have to take into account to set your fruit tree up for future success. That's what I want to talk to you about in today's video. When you are looking to get fruit trees or just pretty much any plants, what is, in my opinion, the first and the most important thing you need to do? Well, if you want bougainvilleas that look like this, that are 2 meters tall, in bloom, of incredible quality, as an example, then you need to be able to go to a reputable source. Most garden shops are not going to be giving you this standard of bougainvillea, once again as an example. And the same applies to fruit trees, normal trees, fynbos, you name it. The quality of plant you get is directly related to the reputation they have. So don't drive past and pick whatever it is that you want from whoever at the cheapest possible price, because remember, you're going to get what you pay for. So do some research before you invest in what is a future many years worth of food that's going to be produced from your fruit trees, because the little bit of research you're going to be doing is going to set you up for many years of success. And the reputation of the people and the company that you buy from is going to go a long way in making that a lot easier for you. Once you've found a place that you know is going to give you some really good quality plants, the next thing you need to look at is something that is not often spoken about, and for me is one of those secret tips that could really make or break your fruit tree purchase. And that is, what do their mature and full-sized trees look like? I am surrounded here behind me by this is Cape Garden Centre, by their what must be 4-meter trees. And what this is showing me is that they know how to look after trees. They know how to shape them because they're all really well shaped, really well structured. Here I have an oak tree right next to me. It's just so healthy. Not a single bite mark, not a single mildew mark, nothing. The trees are healthy, the trees are big, and to some future points, they're in the correct bag size, pot size. So this is really one of those hidden tips that could really make a big difference in your life. Is before you go and buy a fruit tree, have a look at their real trees. If their real trees look all spindly, thin, losing leaves, they've been bitten and chewed, just stay away. Chances are there's some things lurking underneath the soil in those fruit trees, because like I said, big trees are an indication of smaller trees. So behind me, I have the section of fruit trees. And now that you know, you need to find somewhere that has a good reputation, somewhere that has a really good quality range of large fruit trees, you then need to start looking at, how do I start analyzing my fruit tree? And what I do is I go from the bottom up. From the bottom, meaning starting at the very base, and that is the pots. The pots or the bags your plants are in, or the nursery stocks your future fruit trees in, is going to make the world of difference to the plant that you are transplanting. And the signs of a really good nursery is that there will be a wide range of bags and pots for you to choose from. An example is, behind me, they are olives. They are olives in small bags, and they are stepping up as the trees are getting bigger, more mature. What you don't want is to go to a nursery where all the fruit trees are in the same size bag, irrespective of the variety or cultivar or the size of the tree, because those are the two things that are going to impact the size of the bag. You're not going to be putting a fig tree into a small 7-liter bag, but you could probably get away with it with a pomegranate, as an example. So knowing that the nursery knows what trees need what size bags, and also the size of the tree is representative of the size of the bag or pot it is in, is going to give you a really good indication as to whether the trees you are buying from your nursery are worth the price, are worth investing your time in, because the time is going to be a few years, and the pot or bag your trees are in is going to set you up for failure or success. So right below me is a perfect example of getting the correct size pots. Here are some young fig trees, and they're in smaller plastic containers. Here are some bigger fig trees, and they're in much bigger bags. But the next tip is actually an extension of that, and that is, how do you know that what you're buying is not something that has recently been up-potted, bagged up, things like that? That is something you need to look at, because chances are when you get home, you're going to want to plant this. And if this tree was recently repotted, up-potted into a bigger pot, the tree's just gone through a whole bunch of stress. And repotting or planting a recently repotted tree could potentially kill your tree, depending on what tree it is. Not a fig tree though, because they're near impossible to kill. But what you want to do is, please don't go ripping trees out of pots at nurseries. But what you can do is just give it a very slight tug upwards. A very slight tug is going to show you if that soil is busy lifting. And if you can see with a very, very slight tug that the base of the tree is lifting, or it's starting to move in the soil, chances are that tree was recently up-potted. And why does it do that? Because what it's showing us is that the roots have not yet been able to go out properly into the new space, the new soil, hold on to that, so that when you lift the tree, the whole tree comes out of the pot. Once again, you don't want to go lift trees out of pots or out of bags, but a simple tug is going to tell you whether your tree is established for future or not. Then answering a quick question you might have: does it matter whether you buy a bag or a pot? And the quick and easy answer is no, it makes absolutely no difference. The most important thing is that the tree looks healthy, the plant's roots don't look disturbed, and that you can see that there aren't signs of recent up-potting or repotting. Bags, pots really don't make a difference, so don't let that deter you if you only see a whole bunch of bags. And some other nurseries have pots. It's not going to make or break how your tree is going to perform in the long run. So as I sit here in this aisle surrounded by peach and apricot trees, these are really good fruit trees to talk about the next chapter, which is root stock and roots, root health and care. Now, first of all, what is rootstock? It is probably the most important thing you need to ask or investigate. And the rootstock that you have or will be buying on your fruit tree is pretty much what's going to determine things like the size, the growth rate, the vigor, the pest resistance, the soil. All of those elements and more are controlled by the rootstock. And how do you know what on earth it is that you're buying? What I would suggest is go and talk to the nursery manager or someone on the floor who can send you somewhere. What you will find is that the stems or the trunks are painted. This one is blue, blue, blue. The apricots are pink. There are some that have orange. There are some that have pink and orange. And you might find that different nurseries have different colors because they've got them from different suppliers, and the suppliers label or color their trees' rootstocks differently. If you want a dwarf tree, you need to ask the people that you are buying your tree from. You are looking for a fruit tree, for instance, an apricot or an apple on dwarf rootstock. If you do not do that, you potentially run the risk of picking up an apple tree or pear or apricot that is on rootstock that is going to basically have or create a 6 to 8 meter tree. If you're in an urban space and you need it to be small or compact, you need to get the right rootstock. Also, you don't want to get rootstock that is tailored for or performs best in hard clay soils and go and put it in an environment where there's sandy soil. It's also going to struggle. So asking what rootstocks are on the trees is ultimately the one of the qualifying questions you have to ask before buying a fruit tree. Because if you don't, you could end up with the right tree that you want that's going to behave completely the wrong way. Once again, investing time, money, effort, all of that, and ultimately getting something that you're not going to be happy with. Now, something that is quite popular overseas in countries like the US and the UK, but not so much here in South Africa, is potted versus bare root trees. Now, that is something that you also need to just do some research on. Which trees should be potted, which ones can be bare rooted, how do you treat them differently? That I will leave up to you to just ask around and do your local research based on your local trees, your local nursery. But that is something you also need to ask about, because if it's a season, if it's a type of plant that performs best planted as bare root, do that. But if it's a plant that does well potted directly into the soil from a container or a pot, then rather do that. It's an acknowledgement here that there are potted and bare root trees. It's not something that's very popular over here, but if you want to make sure that you have all the information available to you, make sure that's also something you are talking to your nursery manager about. Now that you know what's up with your containers, your plants, you know that it hasn't been recently repotted, and you start actively looking for your tree, what is the next thing you need to look at? Still being right at the bottom in the roots, we need to start looking at the roots themselves. Now, this is a really good example next to me because it has flaring roots straight from the base, which means it's a very happy tree. All you need to do is literally just the surface, a tiny little bit. Just move a little bit of the soil away from the base of the tree, and you'll very quickly see the flaring roots. If there are no roots, then you can start having some warning signs. The next thing you need to do is pick up your future tree and have a look. This one, as an example, has roots that are coming out of the holes, which is an indication that this is a very happy tree because the roots are coming out, they're being air pruned, so there's a lot of root health happening in this bag. Sometimes you'll even find roots coming out the bottom of the bag, which is even better because then you've got a super happy tree. So all you need to do to save yourself a whole bunch of time for allowing this tree to re-establish roots is just to have a quick inspection of the roots of the tree. Something you need to be mindful of and have a close eye to detail for is circling roots around the base of the tree. You want flaring roots. You don't want roots that have wrapped around the base of the tree. Why? Because that's an indication that when the nursery up-potted or repotted the trees, they didn't correctly move the roots out. And what's happened is the roots had limited space, so they started going round, and they're going round and round and round. And if that tree stays like that, what's going to happen is those roots that are wrapped around the trunk are going to get thicker and thicker as you put it in the ground, ultimately strangling your tree. It might not kill it because there might be some fusion of the woody materials and the cambiums, but it's going to be setting your tree back. So having a look at circling roots around the base of your fruit trees could be a sign, a hidden sign that there's something that you are missing. Now you've moved on from the pots. You've found a whole bunch of healthy trees. They're in good pots, they've got healthy roots. Now we start moving our way up and we start looking at the trunks. Believe it or not, the trunk can tell you a lot about the amount of care and attention that has gone into your fruit tree. I am sitting in between a whole bunch of pears, and this is the, if I remember correctly, self-fertile rosemary pear. And if you look at these trunks, you can immediately see a few things. First of all, they have quite a bit of girth in them. They're strong, they're thick, and most importantly, they are grafted. That is the first thing you have to look for with your fruit trees. Most fruit trees will be grafted. And what does the grafting mean? Well, if you remember the previous point I raised on rootstock, the graft is how we take a named variety that has a certain characteristic of fruit, like an Anna apple or a Granny Smith apple. We're going to take that vegetative material, and we're going to graft it onto the rootstock, which means that, let's say, rosemary pear is going to grow in a certain way depending on what the rootstock is telling it to do. But we're not going to get what we need from the tree if it just grows on its own from seed. So we need to take cuttings like this and graft it onto rootstocks. Now the grafting can once again completely decimate your future in this tree or completely set it up for failure. And what do I mean by that? Well, if we have a look at these two, the graft point is right here. You can see there's a slight variation, but it's vertical. This one is a really good graft because from here it's vertical. Signs of really bad grafts are where you have a straight stem and then there's a sometimes even 90-degree bend, but all the way up to like 45 degrees they're not good grafts. So if you can look for your trunks to be thick, strong, they don't just bend around, and then very importantly, the graft is a good, strong vertical graft, then that's really going to help you. The other thing you need to look for with grafts are cracks, tears, any form of disease or infection, anything like that. Because if anything goes wrong at the base of your tree at that graft point, the rest of your tree over time will suffer, it will die, the rootstock will take over, and you've lost the variety that you've wanted. So now you know you've got a healthy root base, you're in the right size pot, you got a really good graft and a good sized trunk. Let's carry on further up the tree. The next thing you need to look at is, I'm standing here because I have two really good examples, and that is branches and branch placement. Depending on your size, your goals, what it is that you want to achieve with your fruit tree, you have to have a look at the branches on the trees that you want to buy. Why is that so important? Because if you want a tall tree, you need to start looking at a tree like this that has branches that start higher up and are more vertical. If you want a shorter, more compact tree, you need to look at something that is more down this line, which has branches starting much lower. It's been pruned lower quite a few times and it's way more compact. If you want a small, compact tree and you buy one of these, the very first thing you're going to have to do is lower the trunk, which means you're losing all of this growth. Same thing applies in reverse. If you want a tall tree and you opt for something like this, you're going to have to remove all of this growth and let the top main stem grow so you can get taller and thicker. So if you get the wrong structured tree, you're going to have years worth of frustration. Ask me, I know just how long it takes to structure a fruit tree really well, and depending on the type, like an apple or a pear, it's going to take you way longer to establish your structure than something like stone fruit, which grows pretty quickly, the same as figs. So consider your overall size and shape before you go and commit to buying a fruit tree. If you want a vertical, upright, modified upright tree with branch placements coming off the main stem, then something like this is not going to work because it has been cut and it has a goblet shape. The only way to do that is going to be to remove the branches, choose one, so then you have a modified upright, once again removing all of your growth. Same applies in reverse, that if you want a goblet shape but you buy a vertical, you're going to have to chop it, let those foundational branches grow first before you can start building on its structure. So choosing something that has a natural open shape from the nursery already adds 1 to 2 years to your structure, and ultimately the quicker you can get fruit from your trees. So make sure you are looking at the structure and branch placement before you choose your tree. Then you also want to start looking at the new growth. How much new growth have the trees got on them? Have they got almost none? Is it a very small amount? Or is it something like this, which is almost a meter long? This is all new growth. This is a really good quality tree. The amount of new growth you are seeing on the fruit trees you want to buy are going to directly have a correlation to how healthy the tree is in the soil, the graft, absolutely everything. So use an indicator of healthy growth as to whether you should buy your tree or not. Now, when it comes to citrus trees and the branch placement of them, it's really, really important to have a look at the branch structure and placement. And I'm specifically referring to the skirt or downward facing branches. We can see in this example of the beautiful downward drooping shaped branch, the same as the ones above me. Why is that so important? Well, because citrus bear fruit on lower hanging branches. And if you can find a citrus tree that has had the time and effort gone into it to shape the tree correctly, you are literally going to get back years of your life. Citrus can take a long time to create that what is very well known as the skirt. And choosing something like this that has the skirt already in place is really going to help you a lot. Now, you would be tempted to have a look at all of this beautiful vertical healthy growth. Yes, that is an indication of a healthy tree. And if you have to get the tree from where you are, rather have a look at the healthy growth than for something like a skirt. Once again, if you're at a quality nursery or a quality garden center like Cape Garden Center, you're going to have trees like this that have huge skirts that are drooping down, full of flowers. And the next point is going to be an unpopular opinion, which I just want to bring you a little bit closer into a different tree on. Now, I'm very aware that you are looking for a fruit tree for one reason, and more than likely one reason only: the fruit. So this is an unpopular opinion, and it's something that has helped me, and I really hope it's going to help you. When you are looking to buy a new fruit tree, do not look for trees that have fruit on them. What's going to happen is picking a tree that has fruit on it is going to lure you into something that's potentially wrong with this tree. This specific tree, as an example, one of the yellow ones fell on my neck, has got fruit in it. But after analyzing it, I can see that it is heavier on this side than this side. There are one or two branches missing over there. So for me personally, I wouldn't choose this fruit. But it's the only plant in here that has fruit on it. And the lure of the fruit could potentially lure me into choosing a tree that is not the best tree now. Now, this does not mean to not look for trees that are in flower. In flower, trees mean they are ready to produce fruit. In fruit, trees mean they are bearing naturally, but it's just busy taking away from some of the things that you could be looking for in your tree. So don't pick a tree because it has fruit on it. Look for trees that are in fruit-bearing age, that are flowering, that the trees around it are bearing fruit, because chances are it was created from the same batch. And use that as your indicator to choose the best possible structured tree, and not the tree based on the amount of fruit that it has on it. When it comes to choosing fruit trees or making the decision to commit to investing time and money into fruit trees, the self-control needs to kick in to not just get every fruit tree you can. What we're looking at here is choosing the right trees based on your climate and soil. If you have heavy clay soil, you need to do research to see what trees do not like clay soil and which ones thrive in clay soil. You need to have a look at, do you have frost? What trees hate frost? It's die in frost. Which ones need frost to stimulate bud production, flowering, and fruiting? So some examples here are: don't go and get bananas and papayas or pawpaws if you are in a climate that experiences frost. But if you are in an area that experiences frost, you need to look at things like almonds, pears, apples, because the frost and the cold is what stimulates the budding and the flower and fruit production. You're not going to necessarily take something like an almond, a pear, or an apple and put it in a tropical climate, because you're not going to have the effectiveness of production that you would in a cold environment. So knowing what trees to plant in your specific environment is going to save you a lot of frustration, a lot of time wasted, because ultimately, if you're trying to grow a pawpaw where it's -10 in winter, it's not going to happen. And vice versa. If you're going to create this beautifully structured apple tree where the winter temperatures never go above or below 10 degrees Celsius, you're just going to get frustrated because you're not going to get the production you want. That being said, you can look into varieties that have been altered and adapted to specific climates. Once again, this is where we circle back to rootstock. You can find a specific variety of tree that has been grafted onto a specific type of rootstock that will allow you to grow that tree in certain conditions that it naturally wouldn't be able to. So once again, this is a all-inclusive video where you need to take all of the pieces of the puzzle and piece it together. Do you know what I love seeing in nurseries? Things like this. What this is it's a sticky card which is busy indicating to the owners of the nursery what is the pest pressure like, what pests are there, so they can counter them. That is another sign of a really, really good quality nursery. The other thing I would suggest you do when it comes to pests and diseases is head over to the citrus orchard. As you can see over here, Cape Garden Centre has a huge amount of citrus, and I'm not talking little whippersnappers, I'm talking really, really well structured citrus. Why do I say you should head over to the citrus orchard? Because if a nursery or a garden centre is not looking after their plants, the first ones to show are going to be citrus. They are going to have black on the leaves, and that's an indication of black sooty mold. They are going to have aphids. They are going to have that, I can never pronounce the name of it, Psylla, whatever, Psylla. It's a little pest that's underneath. It causes the bubbles on the leaves. You can see the quality of this citrus. There is absolutely nothing wrong with it. Taking a walk through a nursery citrus orchard is going to give you a really good idea of how well they look after their plants from a pest and disease point of view. I showed you the pear earlier on that had immaculate growth on it. No bites, no snail pressure, nothing like that. And knowing that your garden centre nursery is investing the time, effort and money into pest and disease control is just another sign that you are buying a good quality tree that doesn't have to recover from stress, damage. It can go in the ground and just leap with growth into its future abundant life. Take this seriously. Walk around, have a look at the pests and diseases. Don't be tempted. The pests and diseases you are taking from the nursery, you are taking home. So unless you want to introduce all of those into your garden that you're potentially working really hard at fighting, just leave them behind. It's not worth the hassle. One of the most common questions I see is, when should I look at buying my fruit trees? When should I plant my fruit trees? Everything around timing. And those are very good questions, and they are very important questions. So it is late summer, and for me personally, this is the best time to head to your nursery and have a look at what your trees in your local nursery or garden centre are doing. It's not at the point where all the leaves look diseased because they are starting to lose their leaves. They are still showing late summer growth, like this apple tree. And it's close enough to planting season in autumn and winter that you don't need to wait 2 or 3 seasons. So if you want to start increasing your garden's productivity with fruit trees, start doing research in summer. then head out to your nursery, go through this checklist and start inspecting towards late summer, early autumn. And then if you have some trees in mind, come back if you want to in the autumn to see how they react. What is their timing like for dropping leaves? There are a whole bunch of characteristics that you can look at. But when it comes to timing, you don't want to plant your fruit trees in summer, early summer, late summer, early autumn. We're looking at mid to mid-autumn all the way through to late winter. You also, depending on your climate, want to be making certain decisions as to how early or late you plant. Something like a fig tree, which wakes up really late in the season, it's one of the last to break bud, you don't need to plant in early winter. In contrast to that, something like a peach is one of the very first ones to bloom and bear fruit. Those you want to get in the ground as early as possible in the dormancy season, so they have time to set roots before they wake up in late winter. Some of them even wake up midwinter. So knowing the variety, the cultivar, all of that is going to all be an indicator as to when you should be planting your trees, and when you should be planting your trees, take a few months back, is when you should be looking and buying your trees. Now this next one, which is the last one, is yet again another unpopular opinion. I just seem to be full of them today. That is buying online or buying from your physical location. Why is this an unpopular opinion? Because, well, with the whole boom in everything remote, so has there been a boom in remote buying of plants and fruit trees. And as much as I love the concept of it, for me personally, there are just too many variables outside of my control. For instance, this is a really nice, big, tall peach tree. I can't see this. I can't look at its structure. I can't look at its height. I can't inspect its roots. I can't have a look at the graft line. All of these things that I've spoken to you about in today's video, I cannot look at. I can, yes, for sure, request them from the people that I'm buying online, but ultimately the quality of tree I'm getting is completely outside of my control. Now, what you will find is that when it comes to online nurseries, they are quite a bit cheaper. So what I will say is, it is completely up to you to decide whether you are willing to make the compromise of price to quality, or if you want to set yourself up for the best possible future growth by having full control over all of the quality elements that I've spoken about in this video. If you want control and you want full access to seeing everything that's going on with the trees, don't look at online. If you are very, very tight on budget and you have no option but to buy online, it's still better than not having a fruit tree at all. But just have the expectation that it's going to take you longer to get that fruit tree to the point of where you are happy with it and where it's maximizing its production. So in my opinion, you should always be buying from a location where you can actually see the quality of the little orchards they have and the quality of the trees. Thanks for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got some really cool tips and insights into buying healthy fruit trees, choosing the best possible nursery for you in your area. For me and the Western Cape, that is without a doubt Cape Garden Centre. I've been buying from them for years. This is not a sponsored video, it's nothing like that. It's just somewhere I've been buying for a very long time because their quality is just impeccable. Second to none. I've literally not found another nursery that can provide the quality of fruit trees like Cape Garden Centre can. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please share it out to your fellow gardening community. Help those in need, help those that need to get good, structured, quality fruit trees in place. And until next time, happy growing.